a man leaves for war. He kisses his newborn son, tells his wife he'll be home soon, and sails away. Then he's gone. Not for a year, not for 5, for 20. And when he finally staggers back through his own front door, his baby son is a grown man who doesn't recognize him. His wife has spent 2 decades fighting off 108 men trying to replace him. And of the 600 soldiers who sailed away at his side, not a single one is left. He is the only one who made it home alive. Every other man died. This is the oldest adventure story in the Western world. For nearly 3,000 years, we've been retelling it. And right now it's back, on the biggest screen you can find. But before you buy that ticket, there's one question the movie can only show you, never explain. How does one man survive 20 years of war, monsters, gods, and the open sea when every man beside him dies? The answer isn't strength. It isn't luck. It's something stranger and far more human. And once you understand it, you'll never watch this story the same way again. Let's start with the man. His name is Odysseus, king of Ithaca, a small rocky island in the Greek Sea. And here's the first thing to understand about him. He is not the strongest hero of his age. That title belongs to men like Achilles, warriors who win by raw force. Odysseus wins a different way. The Greeks even had a special word for his particular gift, Metis. It means cunning intelligence, trickery, the ability to think your way out of a room that stronger men would die in. Odysseus is the man who survives not because he can lift the most, but because he can outthink absolutely everyone, including gods. Remember that word, Metis. It's the key to all 20 years. Here's proof right at the start. The Trojan War had dragged on for 10 brutal years. 10 years of the greatest warriors on earth throwing themselves at the walls of Troy and getting nowhere. And how does it finally end? Not with a stronger sword, with an idea. Odysseus builds a giant wooden horse, hides his soldiers inside, and leaves it as a fake gift. The Trojans wheel it into their own city, celebrating, and that night the Greeks climb out and win the war from the inside. 10 years of muscle solved in one night by one clever man. That's who we're dealing with. So the war is won, now he just has to sail home. Ithaca is maybe 2 weeks away. It will take him 10 more years, because the moment he leaves Troy, everything goes wrong. First, his crew gets greedy and raids a town they should have left alone, and men die. Then they land on an island of people who eat a strange lotus flower, and the moment his men taste it, they forget home entirely. They just want to lie there forever, blissed out, erased. Odysseus has to physically drag his weeping sailors back to the ships. Already you can see the pattern that will haunt the whole journey. The sea doesn't just want to kill him, it wants to make him forget why he's fighting to get home at all. Then comes the cave. This is the famous one. They land on an island and enter a giant cave full of food, and the owner comes home, a Cyclops, a one-eyed giant named Polyphemus, who rolls a boulder over the entrance, trapping them, and starts eating Odysseus's men alive, 2 at a time. Brute force is useless. The giant is too strong, and even if they killed him, they could never move that boulder. So Odysseus thinks. He gets the giant drunk on wine, and when the Cyclops asks his name, Odysseus grins and says, "My name is nobody." That night they sharpen a wooden stake and drive it into the sleeping giant's single eye. Polyphemus roars in agony, and the other Cyclops come running, shouting through the rock, "Who's hurting you?" And the blinded giant screams, "Nobody! Nobody is hurting me!" So they shrug and leave. The next morning, Odysseus ties his men under the giant's sheep, and the blind Cyclops feels only wool as they escape. It is the single greatest trick in the whole story, Metis, perfectly executed. But here's the twist that explains the next 10 years. As they sail away, Odysseus can't resist. His pride flares up, and he shouts back his real name, bragging. Big mistake, because Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon, god of the sea. And now the giant knows exactly whose son to curse. Poseidon hears his blinded child and swears that Odysseus will wander the sea for years, lose every man, and come home broken. The very cleverness that saved his life, undone in one moment by his ego. That tension, brilliant mind versus dangerous pride, is the real engine of this whole story. From there, the trials come like waves. A god of the winds gives him a magic bag holding every storm, so he can sail safely home. And within sight of Ithaca, his crew, thinking it's full of treasure, opens it, and the released winds blow them all the way back. A witch named Circe turns his men into pigs, and he has to outwit her to change them back, then spends a year on her island. He sails to the literal edge of the world, the land of the dead, to hear a prophecy about his future. He passes the Sirens, monsters whose song lures sailors to their death, and he wants to hear it and live, so he plugs his crew's ears with wax and has them tie him to the mast, thrashing and screaming to be released while they row on. Discipline, foresight, Metis again, then the cruelest choice of all, a narrow strait with a monster on each side. On one, a six-headed beast named Scylla. On the other, a whirlpool that swallows whole ships. There is no safe path. If he steers away from the monster, the whirlpool kills everyone. So Odysseus makes the brutal call a leader sometimes has to make. He sails close to Scylla and lets the monster snatch and eat 6 of his men, because losing 6 is the only way to save the rest. He hears them screaming his name as they're carried away, and he keeps rowing. That is what survival actually costs. His last crew dies because they don't listen. Starving on an island, they slaughter and eat cattle that belong to the sun god after Odysseus warned them not to. The gods sink the ship, every man drowns, every single one. Only Odysseus, who refused to eat, survives, washing up alone on the shore of a goddess named Calypso. And here is the deepest test of the entire 20 years. Calypso falls in love with him and keeps him on her island for 7 years. 7. And she offers him something no human has ever offered: immortality. Stay with me, she says, and you will never grow old, never die. Live forever in paradise. Any of us might take that deal. Odysseus says no. Every day he walks to the shore and stares at the sea, weeping because he would rather be a mortal man who gets to grow old and die in his own small kingdom beside his wife than be a god who never sees home again. That is the answer to how he survives. Not the tricks, not the strength. It's this: he never, ever stops wanting to go home. When the sea offered him a way to forget, he refused. When a goddess offered him forever, he refused. The thing that keeps him alive is the one thing that can't be taken from him: his will to return. And back on Ithaca, that will is mirrored by his wife, Penelope, holding the kingdom alone, besieged by 108 suitors demanding she remarry and give one of them the throne. Her trick is worthy of her husband. She says she'll choose a suitor once she finishes weaving a burial shroud, and every night she secretly unravels what she wove that day. For 3 years she weaves a cloth that never gets finished. 2 clever people, an ocean apart, both refusing to give up on each other. Finally, the gods relent. Odysseus reaches Ithaca, but he doesn't storm the palace. That's not his way. He disguises himself as a filthy old beggar and walks into his own home to watch the suitors mock him, eat his food, and disrespect his wife, swallowing his rage, waiting. Penelope announces a contest. She will marry whoever can string Odysseus's great bow and fire it through 12 axe heads. The suitors strain and fail one by one. Not one can even bend it. Then the old beggar picks it up, strings it in a single smooth motion, fires it clean through all 12, and turns the bow on the room. The disguise drops. The king is home, and the reckoning is absolute. But the last test isn't the battle. It's quieter. Penelope, after 20 years, doesn't quite believe this scarred stranger is really her husband. So she sets a trap. She casually orders a servant to move their marriage bed. And Odysseus snaps, because he knows their bed cannot be moved. He built it himself from a living olive tree still rooted in the ground. Only the real Odysseus could know that. And in that instant, she knows. 20 years, 100 trials, monsters and gods, and the whole wide sea. And it all comes down to 2 people and a secret only they share. So how did Odysseus survive his 20 years? Stronger men died at Troy. Braver men drowned at sea. He lived because he could think when others panicked, wait when others rushed, and swallow his pride, usually, when others let it kill them. But mostly he lived because he refused to stop reaching for one small rocky island and the 2 people on it. He was offered the sea's forgetting and a goddess's forever, and he turned down eternity itself just to grow old and die at home. So when you watch him on that giant screen sailing through the storm, remember what he's really fighting. Not the monsters, not the gods, just the distance between a man and his front door, and the 20 years it can take to walk through it.